I have had patient after patient come to me eating what they genuinely believe is one of the healthiest diets possible. High in protein, low in processed food, disciplined, consistent. And they are suffering. Bloating that will not go away. Constipation that no fiber supplement touches. Gas so severe it is affecting their quality of life. Brain fog they cannot explain. And in every single one of those cases, when I look at what is actually happening inside their gut, I find the same thing. The diet that was supposed to fix their health is the thing that broke it. The mechanism by which it is doing that is something almost no dietitian is going to tell you.
Because it challenges the most profitable idea in nutrition today. We can fix this.
It is not complicated once you understand what is actually happening, but you have to be willing to question something you have probably been told is non-negotiable. What I am about to show you in the third section of this video, the specific mechanism by which excess dietary protein destroys the gut environment, is the part that changes how you will think about every meal you eat from this point forward. Promise 1, I am going to explain the precise biological mechanism by which a high-protein diet damages your gut microbiome, your gut lining, and your digestive function. Promise 2, I am going to show you the specific threshold above which protein intake begins to cause gut harm, and it is lower than the fitness industry wants you to believe. Promise 3, I am going to name the exact bacterial species that high-protein diets destroy first, and why losing those species produces the specific symptoms most high-protein dieters experience. Promise 4, I am going to give you the specific dietary adjustments that allow you to maintain meaningful protein intake without the gut consequences. And Promise 5, I am going to give you a simple 7-day protocol that begins reversing the gut damage of a high-protein diet. I am a gastroenterologist and gut-brain axis specialist with 16 years of clinical practice. I have no financial relationship with any supplement company, any protein manufacturer, or any diet program. What I am about to tell you is based entirely on peer-reviewed research and on what I see inside the guts of real patients every week. And what I see is a digestive crisis that is being caused, in a significant number of cases, by the diet that was supposed to prevent it. Let me tell you about a patient. I will call him Robert. He was 44 years old, an engineer, and he came to my clinic after 18 months of digestive problems that had simply not responded to anything he tried. 180 grams of protein per day, chicken breast, Greek yogurt, protein shakes, egg whites, lean beef, almost no grains, minimal fruit, very low fiber. He had lost weight, he had built muscle, his gym metrics were excellent, but from month 3 of the diet onwards, his digestion had progressively deteriorated. Severe bloating every evening. Constipation requiring laxatives 3 times per week. A persistent smell in his stool that his wife described as different, more pungent, more chemical. Fatigue that arrived every afternoon, regardless of how much sleep he got. And a low-level anxiety that he could not explain and had never experienced before the diet change. Robert did not have a protein deficiency. Robert had a gut that had been systematically dismantled by too much of a good thing. When I looked at Robert's microbiome analysis, what I found was not a random disruption. It was a specific and predictable pattern of damage that I now see regularly in patients eating this way. His Akkermansia muciniphila, the bacteria responsible for maintaining the integrity of his gut lining kefir, was severely depleted. His butyrate-producing bacteria, the organisms that produce the short-chain fatty acid that feeds his colon cells and regulates inflammation in Rome, were almost entirely absent. And in their place, a group of protein-fermenting bacteria had proliferated, producing toxic byproducts including ammonia, hydrogen sulphide, and indole compounds circulating through his bloodstream. Those compounds were driving the fatigue, the brain fog, and the anxiety he had been experiencing for over a year. Robert did not have a protein deficiency. Robert had a gut dismantled by too much of a good thing. Here is what happens inside your gut when protein intake is chronically excessive. Your small intestine has a finite capacity to digest and absorb protein. Most research suggests that the upper limit of what the small intestine can efficiently process in a single meal is somewhere between 30 and 50 grams of protein, depending on the individual. When protein intake exceeds that capacity, which it routinely does on a 150 to 200 gram per day protocol, Paul, the undigested protein passes into the large intestine. And in the large intestine, protein is not digested, it is fermented by bacteria. And fermentation of protein produces something very different from fermentation of fiber. The fermentation of fiber produces beneficial short-chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, acetate, accro, that feed your colon cells, regulate your immune system, and maintain the gut lining. But the fermentation of protein produces ammonia. It produces hydrogen sulphide, and for the gas responsible for the characteristic smell of high-protein dieters. It produces branched-chain fatty acids that drive inflammation rather than resolve it. And it produces indole and scatol compounds that, at elevated levels, cross the gut lining into the bloodstream, where they drive systemic inflammation and disrupt neurotransmitter production, and place significant detoxification burden on the liver and kidneys. Here is what makes this mechanism so consequential. The bacteria that ferment protein are not the same bacteria that ferment fiber. They are a competing population. When protein availability in the colon is high, the protein fermenting bacteria proliferate. As they proliferate, they crowd out the fiber fermenting bacteria, specifically the butyrate producers that maintain gut health. As butyrate production falls, the colon cells begin to lose their primary energy source. The gut lining weakens. Tight junction integrity declines. Bacterial fragments cross the compromised lining into the bloodstream. Chronic low-grade inflammation takes hold. And now you have a patient who looks healthy on the outside, muscle mass, low body weight, excellent gym performance PEF, and is carrying a gut on the inside that is producing toxic compounds and losing the microbial architecture it needs to function. The bloating is not random. It is hydrogen sulphide and ammonia gas produced by bacterial fermentation of undigested protein. The constipation is not random. It is the loss of butyrate-producing bacteria, whose short-chain fatty acids directly regulate colon motility. The fatigue and brain fog are not random. They are the systemic effects of elevated indole and ammonia compounds crossing a compromised gut lining. Every symptom Robert had was a direct and predictable consequence of the mechanism I have just described. Let me show you how this presents across 3 different patients, because the profile varies and most people do not connect the symptoms back to the diet. The first patient I will call Caroline. She was 38, a marketing director, and she had been following a high-protein ketogenic diet for 2 years. Caroline's protein intake was consistently above 160 grams per day. Her symptoms were dominated by bloating and gas, severe enough that she had stopped attending evening social events because she could not predict when the bloating would become visible and painful. She had tried every probiotic on the market. She had eliminated gluten, then dairy, then eggs. Nothing worked because nothing addressed the actual cause. When we reduced her protein to 80 grams per day, introduced targeted prebiotic fiber, and added the specific foods that rebuild butyrate-producing bacteria, her bloating resolved within 3 weeks. She told me it was the first time in 2 years she had felt normal after dinner. That was not a supplement. That was removing the cause. The second patient I will call Marcus. He was 51, a former professional athlete now working in sports coaching. And he had been eating high protein his entire adult life as a matter of professional habit. Marcus's primary complaint was constipation. He had been told by a previous physician that he simply had a slow colon and would need medication indefinitely. His microbiome analysis showed butyrate-producing bacteria at less than 5% of what we would expect to see in a healthy adult. When I explained the mechanism to Marcus, he was resistant. He had eaten this way for 30 years. It was identity, not just diet. We made incremental changes rather than dramatic ones, reducing protein gradually, introducing resistant starch and prebiotic fiber, and adding the foods that feed butyrate producers. Within 6 weeks, his bowel function had normalized without laxatives for the first time in over a decade. The third patient I will call Priya. She was 46, a physician herself, which made her case particularly interesting. because she had self-diagnosed and self-treated extensively before coming to see me. Priya had connected her fatigue and brain fog to her gut independently, which showed good instinct. But she had interpreted it as a probiotic deficiency and had been taking multiple high-dose probiotic supplements for 8 months with no improvement. What Priya had not recognized was that no probiotic will restore a gut receiving excessive protein daily. The substrate was wrong. The environment was wrong. The bacteria she was trying to introduce had no ecosystem to survive in. When we addressed the diet first and used supplementation strategically afterwards, her brain fog began clearing within 2 weeks, and her energy levels had substantially recovered within 5 weeks. Here is the specific protocol for reversing high-protein gut damage. These are the steps in order of priority. Step 1. Reduce daily protein to between 0.8 and 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. For most people, this means somewhere between 60 and 100 grams per day. Significantly lower than the 150 to 200 gram targets common in fitness culture. This single change reduces the substrate available for protein fermentation in the colon and begins shifting the bacterial population within days. Step 2. Eat pomegranate daily. Pomegranate polyphenols specifically feed Akkermansia muciniphila, the bacterium responsible for maintaining your gut lining integrity. 100 milliliters of pomegranate juice or a small handful of seeds daily is sufficient. This is the first step in rebuilding the gut lining. Step 3. Introduce resistant starch. Cooked and cooled potatoes, cooked and cooled rice, slightly green bananas, and oats are the richest sources. Resistant starch feeds the butyrate-producing bacteria that high-protein diets specifically destroy. Include at least one resistant starch source in every meal for the first 2 weeks. Step 4. Eat raw garlic and raw onion daily. Garlic and onion are among the richest sources of inulin and fructooligosaccharides, the specific prebiotic fibers that feed butyrate-producing bacteria. Even half a clove of raw garlic added to a meal daily produces measurable shifts in the gut environment within 7 days. Step 5. Add fermented foods. Kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and unsweetened natural yogurt introduce live bacterial cultures that begin populating the gut environment your dietary changes are creating. Fermented foods work far better after you have begun changing the substrate. Introducing them into a protein fermentation dominant gut before addressing the diet produces minimal benefit. Step 6. Eliminate protein shakes during the restoration window. Protein shakes are almost universally the highest concentration protein source in a high-protein dieter's routine. They typically arrive in the gut as a bolus of rapidly available protein that overwhelms the small intestine's absorption capacity and passes directly into the large intestine for fermentation. Removing protein shakes for the first 4 weeks of the restoration protocol produces faster microbiome recovery than any other single change in my clinical experience. Step 7. Add Chinese black vinegar as a condiment. The fermentation compounds in Chinese black vinegar directly stimulate Akkermansia growth in the gut. A tablespoon used as a condiment several times per week is sufficient, and the effect on the gut environment is measurable within 2 weeks. Here is something almost nobody in the gut health space is discussing yet.
And it is one of the most important findings to come out of microbiome research in the last 3 years.
The toxic byproducts of protein fermentation in the colon, specifically hydrogen sulphide, do not only cause local gut damage. Elevated hydrogen sulphide has been shown in recent research to directly suppress the growth of Akkermansia muciniphila. This means that the high-protein diet is creating a self-reinforcing cycle. Excess protein in the colon produces hydrogen sulphide. Hydrogen sulphide suppresses Akkermansia. Akkermansia depletion weakens the gut lining. A weakened gut lining allows more bacterial fragments into the bloodstream. That systemic inflammation further disrupts the gut environment, which allows more protein fermentation, which produces more hydrogen sulphide, round and round. Breaking that cycle requires addressing the protein load first. Everything else, the probiotics, the supplements, the fermented foods, works significantly better once the hydrogen sulphide production is reduced. That sequencing is the piece that most gut health protocols get wrong. I have put together a free resource called the Gut Repair Protocol for High-Protein Dieters. It contains the complete 7-day meal plan that maintains adequate protein while eliminating the excess, the specific foods in the correct quantities for rebuilding butyrate-producing bacteria and Akkermansia, the full list of products and habits to eliminate during the restoration window, and a symptom tracking tool so you can monitor your recovery over the first 3 weeks. You can download it at thegutdoctor.com/protein. That address is in the description below this video. It is completely free, no purchase required. thegutdoctor.com/protein. One question I receive frequently from patients going through this protocol is whether a targeted prebiotic supplement can accelerate the restoration of butyrate-producing bacteria. The answer is yes, particularly in the first 2 to 3 weeks before dietary changes have had time to fully shift the gut environment. I have used and recommend Seed's DS01 Daily Synbiotic, which contains a prebiotic outer capsule specifically formulated to survive to the colon, where butyrate-producing bacteria live. This is an affiliate link. Using it supports the channel at no additional cost to you. The link is in the description. The dietary protocol is the foundation. The supplement accelerates it. After 12 weeks on this protocol, Robert's bloating had resolved. His bowel function had normalized without laxatives. The afternoon fatigue was gone. The anxiety had significantly reduced. His microbiome analysis showed butyrate-producing bacteria recovering toward normal ranges, and Akkermansia levels increasing substantially. He had not lost any meaningful muscle mass. The body is remarkably good at healing itself when you stop doing the thing that is breaking it. And sometimes the hardest part is accepting that the thing breaking it is something you were told was healthy. High-protein diets are not inherently dangerous. The excess is. Understanding the mechanism means you can get the benefits of protein without the damage. That is what this protocol is designed to give you. I read every comment, and your questions directly shape what I cover next. If you know someone who has been eating high protein for years and cannot figure out why their digestion has gotten progressively worse, send them this video. I will see you in the next video.